So we're celebrating a lot this week. There's a lot that takes place this week. Obviously, today is Palm Sunday. It's the day that we celebrate the triumphant entry of Jesus Christ and him riding in on a donkey and representing peace. And it's so cool, especially if you look at the types and the shadows of the Old Testament and what the donkey represented and how God used the donkey multiple times. It's like a really cool, it's just really cool how you see it unfold before you. So this morning we're going to talk about Palm Sunday. We're going to talk about Passover coming this Friday, and then we're going to talk right into Easter. I won't really talk about what Jesus did on Easter, of what we're celebrating, but I am going to talk about communion. We're going to define and discuss and describe the communion, but I want to work a little backwards. So for some of you that are new this morning, you're not used to the way that I preach. I'm sometimes of a jambalaya type of kid. I like to put a lot of different things in the pot, and then all together it comes together, and you go, oh, I get it now. There's going to be a lot of moments you're going to think I'm a space cadet, because I'm going to be over here, I'm going to be over here, I'm going to be over here. But we're going to work a little bit backwards to get us to what Palm Sunday is all about and what Jesus Christ did. I look at it more of a detective type of situation. You see, we have the Bible, we have the book, the best book, the truth, and so we see it all. And for some of us, we need to kind of work backwards to see how it folded and how it worked. And so it's a really great way to do it. It's particularly my favorite way. So that's how we're going to do it this morning. So let's begin. In the ninth grade, some of you guys may have or may have not, or some of you guys have already forgotten ninth grade. That would be this guy. I hated ninth grade because of geometry. That was my problem. In my school that I went to, geometry was in the ninth grade, and for some of you it's pre-algebra, or maybe it was algebra 2, but geometry was one of those things. Postulates and theorems, they were so hard for me. I remember my teacher actually made us memorize as many postulates and theorems as we could. I'm like, you can't memorize those things. And especially what was really bad was, and we'd try to fight. I went to a Christian school. So when I went to high school at a Christian school, and so I remember fighting the teacher and telling her, we have to memorize Bible verses the next period. I was like, so if you get a thee, thou, and the inside of a postulate or theorem, just know it's because of Scripture, okay? I was like, you guys are having us memorize way too much. And I tried every angle I could to get away from it. But one of the things you learned in ninth grade was geometric progression. The point of this is I want to give you guys a theoretical puzzle here this morning. You know, if you fold a piece of paper 50 times, now some of you go, oh, you can only fold a paper 6 to 7 times. Agreed, you myth busters out there, okay? So pay attention how I bring out this theoretical puzzle. If you fold a piece of paper 50 times, the height of the folded paper will be approximately the distance from Earth to the sun, which would be 92,955,000 so many odd miles away. Now, some of you are like, not possible. Not possible. I don't care what you say, Pastor Josh, you're crazy. Well, this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about geometric progression. If you start folding and you fold and you fold and you fold and you fold, you're going 2 raised to the 50th power. Some of you have already lost, and you're like, forget it. Some of you are like, I can beat this. I know I can. Bring me a piece of paper. Right now, you're like ripping out of your Bible. Like, see? It's this big. So the problem is you're not thinking of volume. You're not thinking of volume. You're not thinking of this. All you're thinking about is, if I took a piece of paper, I know it'd only be like this much. Or maybe, okay, all right, maybe I'll give you this much. Not 92 million. Again, you're not thinking about volume, and you're also not considering molecular science. Now, I know I just lost all of you, and I get it. So let me give you guys another theoretical puzzle. It's the theoretical puzzle of the chessboard. There was a shepherd boy who was called into the courts of the king, and the king said, I will pay you 100 pieces of silver for your troubles to tend my flocks in the mountain. And the shepherd boy said, no, I don't want your silver. How about this? And he pointed over to a chessboard over to the side, and he said, how about you place a grain of sand, okay, in the first square. And for every day that I work and tend to your flocks, I want you to put a second piece, okay? It's a second piece of grain. And then I want you to put 2 more, and then the next day put 4 grains on the 3rd square. And for every day thereafter, until the 64 squares are covered, place 2 grains on the next open square for each grain placed on the board the preceding day. That shall be my payment. So the king, amused by the short-sightedness of the peasantry that preferred rice to silver, he agreed. Well, before the month was up, and long before the chessboard squares were filled, the boy owned all the riches of the kingdom. Because again, we start thinking of volume. We forget about the magnitude of stuff. And that happens often during this season. We just look at dates, and we forget about the 2,000 plus years. It's not necessarily, it didn't happen today. Some of you, all you care about is the NCAA finals. That has a heavier presence on your brain than it is as far as what today is, that Palm Sunday. We think so small on the magnitude of what Jesus did. And that's where we have to rearrange our thoughts here, especially this morning. Because one of the greatest scriptures, I know I say it a lot because obviously every scripture is great, but Job chapter 11, verses 7 through 8 says, "Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above." And I love this. What can you do? Man, God was putting Job in his place, right? But he was saying that you don't understand the volume. I can work from the smallest side of the molecular science, and I can work through the largest of the heavens. I can do all things. You have no idea what I can do, the magnitude of all of this. So for us, we can't just walk in here on a Sunday, sit ourselves down in these nice, cushiony red chairs and just be like, all right, I'm going to go home here in a little bit. I'm going to rest today, watch the Duke game. I'm going to go do what I want to do. And you just kind of forget about it. You just lose thought into your own lives of what Jesus did. And I'm not trying to humble you. I'm not trying to crucify you. I'm just trying to get us into a place of realizing that we can't think so small on the magnitude of what Jesus did. I mean, it's huge. So, if you notice, this is my door frame. Clearly not the door frame at my house, but this is a door frame. And this is our Passover door frame. So you see we have the blood on each side. Now you can find this in Exodus chapter 11 and Exodus chapter 12. So I want to work backwards to get us forward just a second here. I'm going to go to Passover. So with Passover, we were told in Exodus chapter 12 to take a pure lamb or a goat, okay, a pure one, and you were to take the blood, and there were so many different procedures that took place with all of this, okay, that Aaron and Moses were instructed to tell the people. And then they were told to take the blood of the animal and rub it on each side of the door and then above the door as well. And so what happened, that was a protection. That was to know that the firstborn wouldn't be taken, and so that it would bypass them. So to give you guys a little bit of an illustration here. So if I'm in here, I'm protected. If I'm out here, not so much. Okay? If I didn't do what God had told me to do, the obedience of it, then I'm standing out here. If I did what God told me to do, then I'm standing in here, and I'm protected. Okay? Really key, important moment here for this morning's message. But Passover, if you want to get down to just a brief meaning of what it is, Passover is a tribute to the liberation of the Israelites from captivity in Egypt. Today, we're going to take communion. And what Jesus did before he went over into getting arrested and crucified for our sake, communion refers to the liberation in a broader manner, that it's indicating the liberty of mankind from sin, all of us. So it's a really heavy, again, volume thing. This was something that everyone was familiar with in that day and time of Passover, okay? And they would celebrate this. But then Jesus, on a smaller scale, took bread and wine with his disciples and showed them a new way of life. Today, you'll take the bread and you'll break it in remembrance of his body. And then you'll take the cup and you'll drink it in remembrance of the blood shed. And therefore, basically taking over what took place in Exodus. He took over this. So it wakes you up to say, whoa, 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 this is huge. This is a big deal. And even in that moment, the disciples, right before that, they had an incident with, and I talked about it last week, they had a moment where some Pharisees didn't understand what was going on. There was some confusion. He looked at his disciples and said, "Are you with me?" And they said, "Yes, we're with you." And they were trying to grab a hold of what it meant with the body being broken. And then eventually, once they saw Jesus on the cross, they had a full revelation of what that meant. Now, we are blessed and lucky because we have the Bible. We have the Bible that tells us all this. And the moment the disciples were living in it. So they were kind of confused about the body and the blood, but eventually it made sense. It came together. They understood what Jesus did now was completely new. I mean, it was completely new. It was revolutionary at the time. And Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. And it was such a beautiful thing. So I want to read to you Hebrews chapter 9, verse 11 through 15. But when Christ came as high priest of the good things that are now already here, he went through the greater and more perfect tabernacle that is not made with human hands. That is to say, it is not a part of this creation. He did not enter by means of the blood of goats and calves, but he entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood, thus obtaining eternal redemption. The blood of goats and bulls and the ashes of a heifer sprinkled on those who are ceremonially unclean sanctify them so that they are outwardly clean. How much more then will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself unblemished to God, cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God? For the reason Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. So what happens is, we have a choice. From this moment, this is what we're saying, that Jesus went to the heavenly tabernacle, and he was sacrificed on our behalf so that we could live, that we could take on his mantle, that we could receive his covenant, his promises. So what he did, physically, he did this. Spiritually, he did something greater than this. Spiritually, what he did was he took us through it, and now we can live in it all the time. We never have to walk out of this. We are always in it. We are always to be in right standing with him, covenant with him. And that's a beautiful place to be. I don't know about you guys, but I love coming home. You guys love going home? I love going home. There's those moments, some of you guys that are married, you have those looks for your wives, your husbands. You look at them and go, that means let's go home. And it's like, yeah, let's go home. There's nothing better than PJs. Nothing better, right? Nothing better than going home, putting on your PJs. Everybody's kind of in their place. You look across the couch, you look at your spouse, you look at them and go, home. It's just so nice and peaceful, right? That's what Jesus did. Jesus brought us into a place where this was home now. This should be home. This is comfort. This is peace. Anywhere and everywhere. No matter what the storm is, or the waves that are raging around you, even when you're at your workplace, in your car. Some of you guys have had some devastating things take place to you already in 2018. Some of you have been celebratory, and this is a season of harvest, you know. But some of you guys are in different stages and different seasons of your walk. And you know, no matter what, God is there with you. And God is working on your behalf. He is walking with you. And so at that moment, even though it's that you look at him and you go, it's time for home. And he gives you that peace. He allows you to breathe, and he just gives you everything you need. He supplies you the supplements of his nourishment. It's all right there, and all it is just a matter of saying, all right, it's time to recognize what he did, and it's coming in. I mean, guys, come on. We know Matthew 11, right? All you who are weary, come to me. Rest. He wants you to rest. That's what home represents for me is rest, right? Rest. I want to rest. I want to be in his presence. I want to rest. I mean, I was a commercial loan officer at a bank, and I remember I had some mean people I worked with. Well, they were just mean. They were mean in a way of just deceptive, and they just wanted to hurt you. They wanted to see you, for some reason, struggle. I don't know why. I don't know why it's in human nature at times. They want to see you fail. They want to laugh at your folly. I remember I was in an important board meeting, and I had the loan docs of all kinds of different people. It was a loan approval meeting, and I was sitting there, and I got bored. I started doodling on the top, right? I'm doodling all over this, and I knew at the end of the meeting I could take that and just throw it in the shred bin, right? But I remember just doodling. But I was just drawing. I was listening, you know. I'm a creative, so a creative person can easily do that. Just drawing away, listening. But it had nothing to do with the meeting. So I threw it in the shred bin. Sure enough, that one individual that didn't like me, they went and pulled it out because they knew I was doing something. They were curious what I was doing. So they pulled it out of the shred bin, and they went and showed my superiors. They wanted to show what Josh is doing. So I remember my boss brought me in, and he said, "Hey, can you explain all of this?" And I go, "It was a really long meeting." He just looked at me, shook his head, and said, "Well, let's refrain from doing this from now on." I go, I'm sorry. I know. I just started doodling. I was listening. I can explain it. No need. Don't worry about it. Just don't do it again. Like, all right. But I knew. I was like, what in the world? Why are people just so vindictive? They're just so mean, so angry. So I remember sitting at my desk, and I had that moment, a little guy on your shoulder pops up and says, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. You could easily get her." I didn't want to get her. But I thought, I just want to rest, right? So I had the greatest, we all have, I had the greatest name above all names in that moment. And I just spoke that name, Jesus. Every demon must flee, right? Every knee must bow, right? And I used that power, that authority that was given to me. I spoke my faith, God, I can take control over this situation. I'm not going to allow sin nature to come dwell up out of me. I'm going to have a choice to make. I have a choice to do good, right? And I had a choice, and I chose that choice that moment. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to love on her. I'm going to love on her. Go over there, ask her if she needs anything. Do you need anything? You need some coffee? I'm sure she thought I was going to poison it. Thought may have crossed my mind. I'm not perfect. But you have those moments, right? But this is where we get to choose, putting on the covenant of Jesus Christ. We get to live back here constantly. Constantly we get to live there. That's where it's all about. In choosing that, that you're not renting it. You're not renting the mantle or the covenant of Jesus. It's yours. It's yours. When you've declared Jesus Christ your Lord and personal Savior, it's yours. I had an ex-girlfriend. We didn't last long. Because I went on a couple dates with her, and each time, it was really an awkward moment. I remember she had an outfit on, and all of a sudden a tag popped out. And I was like, "Hey, you forgot to take out the tag." She goes, "No, I didn't." She puts it back. She was returning her clothes after she was wearing them. I know. Awkward. And I was like, this is weird. This is a really awkward moment, right? Come to find out, I mentioned it to somebody. I was like, "Hey, this is really weird, right?" I told another girl. She's like, "Yeah, it's really weird, but I also heard she has a gun. She has like a gun where she would take off the tags and then reapply them." And I was like, wow, really awkward. Really, really awkward. Keep that in mind as I read this next group of scriptures. Isaiah chapter 1. Verses 11 through 17. I'm going to read the Message version because I love how it's worded. It's beautifully written. So Isaiah chapter 1, verse 11 through 17. Why this frenzy of sacrifices, God's asking? Why? Why this frenzy of sacrifices? Don't you think I've had my fill of burnt offerings and sacrifices, rams, plump grain-fed calves? Don't you think I've had my fill of blood from bulls, lambs, and goats? When you come before me, whoever gave you the idea of acting like this, running here and there, doing this and that, all this sheer commotion in the place provided for worship, quiet your worship charades. I can't stand your trivial religious games. Monthly conferences, weekly Sabbaths, special meetings. I can't stand one more. Meetings for this, meetings for that. I hate them. You've worn me out. I'm sick of your religion, while you go right on sinning. When you put on your next prayer performance, I'll be looking the other way. No matter how long or loud or often you pray, I'll not be listening. And do you know why? Because you've been tearing people to pieces, and your hands are bloody. Go home and wash up. Clean up your act. Sweep your lives clean of your evil doing so I don't have to look at them any longer. Say no to wrong. Learn to do good. Work for justice. Help the down and out. Stand up for the homeless. Go to bat for the defenseless. You know what he's saying? He's saying, recognize what Jesus did, the magnitude, the volume of it. Now live in it. Live here. Stop acting like you don't know any better. Cut the tags. Stop returning the mantle. Some of you are. And I know, and it seems like pastors always say that during this week, and I'm safe to say it today more so than next Sunday. Stop making this a yearly thing. Stop making this a convenient thing. Because that's what's happening, is that we're keeping these tags on in case we want to return it. This fits us now. This is convenient now. I don't want to buy it. I don't want to go all the way in. Why do I want to do that? I like standing out here and just looking and knowing that it's available. And we're using Jesus that way. And I choose my words wisely when I say this, but we are prostituting Jesus. And Jesus is saying, wake up. Wake up to this. Wake up to the fact that we need to follow him, not just need him. We've got to follow him. Because I got to tell you, yeah, okay, out here, outside of the walls, outside of this, you're on your own. And yeah, there's people out there that, man, they get by sometimes. But they're aimlessly walking. There's no comfort. Their comfort is substance abuse. Their comfort are things that just numb them. Inside of here is comfort. Oh, it's comfort. You have the name above all names. You have the ability to speak the greatest name of all. You have the ability to have the Comforter come and dwell inside of you. You have it all right here. And you get to live here. This is rest. This is peace. He's going to nourish you. He's going to take care of you. That's what the whole point of the bread, the body breaking, the blood shed, and drinking of the wine. It's the part of saying, hey, I've prepared a table for you in my house. I've prepared a table for you, and I want you to come in and eat with me. I want you to come in. I want you to be with me. Oh, man. I mean, I love it. John chapter 6, verse 48. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that comes down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. The bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. And we just look at it and we just kind of toss it around like, here it is. Just a little cup. Because it's more than this. It's a celebration. It's a remembrance that we again, when I tell you guys that we could fold a piece of paper 50 times and it would be from here to the sun, immediately all of you are like, not so much. But it's math. 2 plus 2 is what? Argue with me on that one. But again, you guys, we don't want to understand the magnitude, the volume of what that looks like. We just put it into what we know by our experience. Guys, God's bigger than our experience, all right? So for us, we've got to wake up and realize. So we're about to take communion. So Palm Sunday is this moment of celebration of realizing that Jesus had just raised Lazarus. So there was all this excitement and commotion, and that's why the people were so excited. They realized this is Hosanna. This is Hosanna. It was huge. So he comes into the city riding on a donkey representing peace. Peace and goodwill towards all men, right? So awesome. So then there's a celebration all week long, this celebration, and then comes the night of Passover. And he meets with his disciples and he explains to them, man, if you guys knew what this is about, what's about to take place. They didn't know. They didn't understand the magnitude of it. They didn't understand it. So Jesus explains taking the bread and breaking it and drinking of the wine and understanding that process. But right before he got to that, right before he broke the bread and the wine, he actually had Judas leave. He actually had Judas leave the room. Go do what you got to do. Then they partook of communion. See, if you're not in agreement with God, if you're not in agreement with covenant with Him, if you haven't decided to walk into His home, then He's looking at you and saying, hang on, if you're willing, come in. The door is open. Come on. And there's a time this door is open. The door will shut. We hear it, Matthew chapter 24, all the Revelation. You'll see that there's a moment here we have. The door is open. And Jesus is standing here and He's saying, come on, let's go. Come into my house. I've prepared a table. Come on. But see, Judas at that moment didn't want to go in. What did he go for? Silver. Remember the theoretical puzzle? The small-mindedness of the silver. And the peasantry brain of the shepherd boy. Give me the grains of sand, or the grain of rice. See, you get fixated on the material stuff. You get fixated on stuff that doesn't matter, and you're not realizing the magnitude and the volume. So Jesus standing here said, come in. I prepared a table for you. Know how great it's going to be. It's going to be great. It's comfort. When you grab a hold of this, then you're going to be a part of a covenant. You no longer have to rent things. You never have to, it's a forever, come on in. And you'll find rest, you'll find peace, you'll find full understanding. You'll get it. So in those moments when storms arise and things will take place all around you and you'll see the swell of the wave, you're going to know how to handle it. You're going to know what to do. In certain moments, you're going to be able to walk on water. People are going to look and be like, how are you able to do this? That's the power of God. He gets the glory, and it's those moments you come in. And when you come in, you're in fellowship with Him. And when you're in fellowship with Him, things get revealed to you. Judas didn't want that. You can't take communion. You can't be in covenant with Him if you aren't willing to come in. You can't do it. And so that's what Jesus is saying, that with this communion, we've been celebrating this for thousands of years now. And we use bread as a symbol and for Jesus' body, and wine as a symbol for His blood. And Jesus started the tradition. He instructed us to do this often, that we do it in celebration. And we understand that what He was going to do is once we took the blood, or once the disciples took the bread and the wine, that the next big moment was Jesus dying on the cross. In progression, it just makes, trust me, when you read in Exodus and how it just types and shadows right over into what Jesus did. Oh man, it's just amazing how it works. Amazing. And so it's something for us that we have a greater understanding and greater benefit now. It's hard for me when people will say to me, I don't get it, I don't understand it. I was like, it's a whole lot easier to understand now than it did back then. At the moment the disciples were going by like day by day, it's already been done, and now it's just a matter of just saying, I want to enter in. And when you do, I can't explain it. It's an experience you have to have yourself with Him. And when you seek after His face, you seek after Him to come and live and dwell inside of you, then it's an experience that overwhelms you. It's a power you can never really, truly, fully explain. But you know this, it's real. And I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's so worth it. But this is it. That Jesus is our nourishment. He's everything. He's telling us this. We survive because of Him. And He satisfies us when everything else leaves us empty. He satisfies us. I mean, as I read, I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna. And they died. But now, He's telling us because of what He's doing, we never have to taste death. Now, that's something that's it's heavy and it's got to sit on you for a little bit. We never have to taste death. I think about it. Often, I think about those moments. I think, gosh, what's that mean exactly? Even though, yeah, you think of the sting of death, but I think it's an instantaneous moment. The minute that you die, you wake up to something greater. It's immediate. It's a sting of death, but I'm telling you guys, it's not forever. So taking communion, know this, it doesn't make you a Christian. It's not like Romans 10, okay? It's not like that. It doesn't save your soul. It doesn't get you into heaven, okay? Communion is celebration. Communion is position that you find yourself in. We need to consider what it means right now before we partake in it, okay? And why we're doing it. The intent is not, again, for us to mindlessly perform a ritual, okay? It's not that purpose. That's really wrong of us to do. It's for us to intentionally set ourselves aside, our time, to remember what Jesus has done and why He did it. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 27 through 31, so then whoever eats this bread and drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of sinning against the body and blood of the Lord. Everyone ought to examine themselves before they eat of the bread and drink from the cup. For those who eat and drink without discerning the body of Christ eat and drink judgment on themselves. That is why many among you are weak and sick, and a number of you have fallen asleep. But if we were more discerning with regards to ourselves, we would not come under such judgment. I'm going to ask Stephen and Jonathan to come up. We're going to prepare our hearts right now. So you see, some people, they'll take communion out here, basically on their own terms. What's convenient? They'll just do it right here. They treat it like it's a ceremonial thing. They don't understand that when you come into the house, you honor the house. You honor the place where you are. Okay? This is a house that He's prepared for us. So there's a standard here. There's a position, a heart. It's not a matter of just saying, oh, that's just the way it is. Celebration. Celebration means that there's a celebration. You don't come to a party pooper. Right? You can't. That's why I really want to move over just a side rabbit trail for 5 seconds. I know things are tough for you. I know some things are hard. Some of you have lost your job. Some of you lost loved ones. Some of you don't know what tomorrow will bring. But I know what my God said. So today, when you come into church, you come in celebratory. You don't come in all down. You come in knowing that you have the name above all names. Why? Because you've taken time to spend with Him. This is a time where we worship. It's a time where we celebrate. Not a time where you're looking for everyone to give you a pity party. Hey, and you look sad. And it's the time you should have been sad yesterday. Spent time worshiping and not doing anything else until you've got the answer from Him. That's your time. And then this morning you come in, you celebrate. We celebrate. For it's communion, it's not, we don't come in, you come in celebrating. This is a moment of celebration. That's what the disciples did. We see them in Acts chapter 2. In verse 42, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. I mean, what a great moment. It was like the purest moment of the first beginnings of the church. And for some of you, you sit here with bleak mindsets and you think, I don't think we'll ever get back to that. Wow, that's what you're going to... All right, see you later. And I don't believe that one bit. I mean, this is just a matter of us stepping up and being what God's called us to be. And that's to be a child of God. Recognize the mantle that we're wearing. Cut the cord. Cut the tags off. Wake up to the maturity that we have. Wake up to the promises and the mantle that we're wearing. Wake up to who we are and that we've been invited into a place where all things are taken care of. All things are taken care of. I mean, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 22. In fact, the law requires that nearly everything be cleansed with blood. And without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Guys, we are living in forgiveness. Yes. That in our weaknesses, He is made strong. Not we, He is made strong. He comes in when we are what? In James chapter 1, when we are without something, what should we do? Ask. Ask. If we need strength, ask for strength. If we need wisdom, ask for wisdom. If you need patience, ask for patience. Whatever it is, God's going to give it to you. He's building you up. He knows what you need. This is a place of nourishment. A place where He sits at the table and looks at you and says, hey, how are you doing? Well, Jesus, this is what's going on. He's all right. And He'll give you the answers. He'll give you what you need. He'll show you. But most of all, it's understanding that, again, it's not about just what we need. It's about that experience just being with Him. And the more you're with Him, the more you realize the less you need. Really, it's truthful. I don't need that. I said it last week, I'll say it again. Jesus isn't concerned about you having things. It's about those things having you. We can't let those things have us. Again, it goes back to money. It's not money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And when it becomes an idol, when those things become an idol and it drives us emotionally, well, we're up and down, we're allowing that to create emotional waves in our lives, those items, that's a bad place to be. And we've got to fast from those things. We got to come into the house and realize this is home. This is where we should be. God has us. He wants us to celebrate this morning. He wants us to celebrate. He wants us all right now to gather around a table, eat and drink, recognize what Jesus did, to give thanks to God for all He's done. This is huge. So right now, I want us to pray.